There's a moment in your life you don't post about. A moment that doesn't come with music or quotes or anyone cheering for your comeback. It's the moment when life doesn't just hurt you. It leaves you sitting in a room that feels colder than it should, surrounded by people who don't know what to say to you anymore, wondering if you'll ever feel like yourself again. And that's when it starts, not the healing, but the breaking. You see, the world doesn't ruin you with explosions. It drains you with silence. It doesn't attack your body, it infects your mind. And when it finally hits, it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet. It feels numb. It feels like looking in the mirror and realizing you don't recognize your own eyes. That's not depression. That's not grief. That's the raw material of something deeper transformation. Most people will run from that. They'll drown it in distractions, noise, false optimism. But a dangerous few, will sit in it. They'll stare at the collapse without blinking. They'll let the pain speak until it teaches. And then, without warning, they'll begin to rebuild not from inspiration, but from cold calculation. This isn't a motivational speech. This is a system for killing the weakness inside you, a blueprint for training the only weapon that truly wins in a chaotic world, a mind that doesn't flinch. This is for the person who's been broken, but not buried, who's done pretending to be okay, who's ready to become undeniable. If that's, you don't just watch, study this, because after this, you won't heal the old version of you. You'll bury it, and what comes next won't chase peace. It will command it. No one teaches you the exact moment it begins. No school class prepares you. No parent explains it. But if you've lived long enough, it will hit you silently, slowly, like fog creeping under your door. One day you're doing everything right. You're showing up. You're working hard. You're trying to be the good person everyone expects. And then something happens, not something dramatic like a death or disaster. It's more subtle. You wake up, and the light feels dimmer. People talk to you, and you respond, but something's hollow behind your smile. You start noticing that you laugh less even at things you used to love. You're not in pain. Not exactly. You're just detached, floating. This is the moment no one talks about, because it doesn't look like suffering from the outside, but it is. It's the first crack. Life doesn't break you with thunder. It breaks you with silence. For most people, this is when the slow death begins. They'll cover the cracks with distractions, hours on TikTok, glasses of wine that turn into bottles, relationships that feel more like escapes than love. They'll tell themselves they're just tired or going through a rough patch. But what they're really doing is postponing a collapse. And make no mistake, collapse is coming. But a rare few, maybe you will do something different. Instead of running, they'll pause. They'll sit in the quiet. And when the voice inside says, "I don't know who I am anymore," they won't look away. They'll stare at it, not with panic, but with attention. That moment, that unbearable, still lonely moment, is the beginning of power. Because pain, real pain, is not a punishment. It's a signal. Your breakdown is not a malfunction. It's a message. And if you listen closely, it tells you something brutal and beautiful. You've outgrown your old self. The reason you feel disconnected, exhausted, numb, is because you are no longer compatible with who you were pretending to be. And the reason it hurts so deeply is because growth demands a death. Not of your body, but of your identity. This is where your mind either turns on you or becomes your weapon. Most people won't make it through this part. They'll try to tape the cracks shut with affirmations and fake gratitude. But affirmations don't mean anything when they're whispered over a self you secretly want to destroy. You can't lie your way to strength. You have to build it brick by brick, thought by thought, breakdown by breakdown. So here's the truth. The world you live in won't wait for your healing. It won't pause for your emotional safety. And no one's coming to save you. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to free you. Because once you stop waiting for the world to change, you realize you can become the change. The anchor. The silence that doesn't shake. the one who walks through fire and doesn't flinch. And it all starts right here at the breaking point. The most important choice of your life isn't made when you're happy, healthy, or confident. It's made when you're cracked cold and unsure, right now. So decide, are you going to keep running from the discomfort that's trying to mold you? Or are you going to sit in the wreckage, burn the old map, and build something stronger? Because the first strike isn't physical, it's emotional. And if you survive it, you don't just heal. You return unrecognizable. Pain sharpens my power. I don't run from the fire. I shape myself inside it. The hardest prison to escape is the one you don't even realize you're in. From the moment you were old enough to understand language, you were told a beautiful lie: be good, be kind, be patient, and life will reward you. They painted the world as something fair, something orderly, as if pain only comes to those who deserve it, and peace will find you if you're polite enough, nice enough, forgiving enough. So you complied. You swallowed your anger. You dimmed your voice. You forgave when you were still bleeding. You gave chances to people who proved they didn't deserve one. And where did that leave you? It left you exhausted, disrespected, bent in half from carrying expectations that were never yours to hold. You kept waiting for the reward, the justice, the acknowledgement that never came. And when it didn't, you didn't get angry. You blamed yourself. You thought maybe you weren't kind enough. Maybe you just had to be even more patient. That's how deep the lie runs. Because here's the truth they didn't teach you. Kindness doesn't guarantee protection. Goodness doesn't guarantee peace. And patience doesn't guarantee respect. This world does not run on moral fairness. It runs on power perception and precision. And the longer you cling to the idea that being good will save you, the longer you'll stay trapped in quiet suffering. You were not born to be soft-spoken and stepped on. You were not made to live life apologizing for your strength. And you are not here to be someone's emotional punching bag in the name of compassion. The people who benefit from the lie are the ones who fear what you'd become without it. Because once you see the truth, you become dangerous. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop apologizing for the space you take up. And that scares them, because your obedience kept them comfortable. Your guilt kept them powerful. Your silence kept them safe from accountability. So when you start changing, when you stop nodding along, stop shrinking, stop saying it's okay when it isn't, suddenly you're the problem. You're cold. You're too intense. You're not the same anymore. Good. You weren't supposed to stay the same. Growth always offends those who relied on your weakness, and power always feels like betrayal to people who only loved you when you were easy to control. So let them talk. Let them misinterpret you. Let them whisper. Because this shift isn't about them. It's about you. It's about finally reclaiming the energy you spent trying to earn invisible gold stars from people who never saw your value. It's about staring into the wreckage of your people-pleasing self and deciding, never again. No more sacrificing your boundaries for peace. No more explaining your pain to people who enjoy watching you drown. No more being nice when what's needed is clarity, strength, and consequence. The world doesn't hand you power. You build it, quietly, relentlessly, from the bones of every version of you that believed in the lie. And once it clicks, once the illusion dies, something inside you shifts permanently. You're no longer waiting for the reward. You become the reward. I killed the old me the moment I realized I was never weak. I was just loyal to the wrong story. After the lie breaks, something inside you hardens. You've cried enough. You've explained yourself to people who only listen to twist your words. You've stood in rooms full of people who claim to love you only to feel like a stranger in your own skin. So you do what feels natural. You close the gates. You promise yourself no one will ever get that close again. No one will ever see the soft parts. No one will ever hold that kind of power over your peace. It's not revenge. It's survival. But here's the danger. In trying to protect yourself, you begin to erase yourself. You start mistaking numbness for strength. You start believing that being cold means being powerful, and you start confusing emotional shutdown with emotional control. That's not power. That's paralysis. You were never meant to destroy your heart to be safe. You were meant to train it. The heart was never the enemy, it was the lack of discipline around it. Feelings aren't the problem. It's letting feelings lead when they should be following. It's mistaking emotional chaos for authenticity. True power doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for things that aren't worthy of your blood. You can still love deeply, but not foolishly. You can still forgive, but only after accountability. You can still be soft, but never where it makes you weak. There's a myth that power and emotion can't coexist, that to lead to protect yourself, to command respect, you must become cold, unfeeling, robotic. That's not power. That's fear in a new mask. Real strength is being able to feel everything without being ruled by any of it. Because the storm isn't outside of you. It's inside. And if you never learn to sit in that storm, if you keep running from the discomfort, from the memories, from the grief, from the longing, you will remain owned by every passing wave of emotion. But when you stay still, when you watch it, when you don't flinch, the storm starts obeying you. That's training. That's how warriors are built. You don't train your heart by avoiding pain. You train it by teaching it to respond with clarity, not chaos. You don't train your heart by silencing your love. You train it by directing that love toward people and places that honor it. You don't train your heart by pretending not to feel. You train it by feeling fully and still choosing wisely. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about refining who you already are, cutting away the desperation, the apology, the need for approval, and leaving only truth. And truth doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't tremble. You weren't born cold. You were born warm. But now, you are selectively warm. And that difference, that edge, is what will save you. Because from now on, no one gets the old version of you, the one that gave everything up front, the one that forgave before receiving a real apology, the one that let people come and go as they pleased. That version, she's done. He's buried, gone. Now your love is earned. Your presence is a privilege. Your silence is a message. And your heart trained, tested, unshakable. I didn't kill my heart. I forged it. There's a quiet kind of destruction that doesn't come from betrayal, cruelty, or violence. It comes from emotional carelessness, the slow, invisible erosion of your self-worth at the hands of people who were reckless with your heart and called it love. The truth is, not everyone who enters your life deserves access to your emotional world. But no one teaches you that. You're raised to be open, to connect, to give people the benefit of the doubt. And so you offer your time, your trust, your softness, thinking it will be honored, hoping it will be seen. Instead, what often happens is this. You fall into a pattern of offering more than what's reciprocated. You justify disrespect because you understand pain. You accept inconsistency because you see their potential. You downplay your intuition because you don't want to be too much. And just like that, the blueprint of emotional danger begins to take shape, not from malice, but from the blind repetition of self-abandonment. You tell yourself you're strong for enduring it. You call it compassion. You think it's love. But deep down, your soul knows the truth. You are betraying yourself to keep someone else comfortable. That's the danger. Because the people who sense your sensitivity, your loyalty, your depth, they will either rise to meet you or they will weaponize it. The ones who cannot face their own emptiness will drain your fullness, not because they're evil, but because they are untrained in how to handle power gently. And make no mistake, your emotions are power. The moment someone learns they can manipulate your feelings, delay their honesty, disappear and return, without consequence, they start playing with you like you're a game they know how to win. But here's what they don't expect. That you'll wake up. That you'll rewrite the blueprint. That you'll start seeing emotional danger not as a storm, but as a map. Because emotional danger always leaves clues in the way someone dismisses your boundaries with jokes. In the way they demand understanding but offer none in return. in the way they're only consistent when they want something, in the way they test how far you'll bend before you break. If you pay attention, people will show you who they are before they hurt you. But you have to be brave enough to believe what you see, not what you wish it could be. You must remember, loyalty is not owed. Access is not free. Love is not unconditional when it costs you your self-respect. Let that truth sharpen you not into someone cold, but into someone clear. Let it strip away the illusion that time invested equals worth keeping. Let it teach you that distance is not cruelty. It is clarity in action. Because when you ignore the blueprint, you suffer. But when you study it, own it, and act on it, you reclaim the steering wheel of your life. You stop being a passenger in other people's chaos. You stop begging for peace in places designed to keep you unstable. You stop letting your heart be the playground of the emotionally immature. And in that moment of full awareness, you realize something powerful. You were never overreacting. You were underprotecting. I don't hate the people who mishandled me. I hate the version of me that let them. But now, that version is gone. And what remains is someone who sees it all coming and chooses differently. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize the world will not protect them. Not from betrayal, not from loss, not from manipulation, disrespect, or emotional neglect. And in that moment when the illusion of safety breaks, you're faced with a choice. You can keep waiting for others to change, or you can start building the fortress. But this isn't a wall to keep the world out. It's a sacred space built to keep your center intact. Because life will test you with chaos, and if you don't have structure inside, you will collapse every time someone pulls a thread. The inner fortress is built brick by brick, from boundaries, from self-trust, from the ruins of every time you let someone else define your worth. It's not built out of bitterness. It's not fueled by revenge. It's discipline born from pain, a pain that taught you the cost of being emotionally unguarded in a world that feeds on weakness. You see, people think emotional strength means being loud, dominant, fearless. But real strength is silent. It doesn't announce itself. It walks into a room and changes the temperature. It sits calmly while chaos screams for a reaction and gives none. It's the power to choose who gets access to you. And more importantly, who doesn't. Inside your fortress, peace is not something others grant you. It's something you own. You no longer chase validation. You no longer argue for your worth. You no longer perform love in hopes of receiving it back. You operate from a solid inner code, not emotion, not impulse, not guilt, but clarity. And the deeper that clarity goes, the harder you become to control. That's what they don't tell you. The most powerful people in the world aren't the ones with the most influence. They're the ones who cannot be moved from within. When someone ghosts them, they stay still. When someone insults them, they study, not react. When the world tries to provoke, they pause not because they're weak, but because they refuse to let others dictate the rhythm of their emotional life. This is the art of the fortress, and here's the hardest truth. Not everyone deserves access to your peace. Some people only come to borrow it. Some come to sabotage it. Some come to test if you still bleed when poked in the same old places. But when your walls are intact, when you've done the work, when you've trained the heart, when you know who you are and what you will no longer tolerate, they can knock all they want. You don't answer. Because this fortress, it's not isolation. It's elevation. It's not about being unreachable. It's about being undisturbed. It's not about having no emotions. It's about ruling over them like a wise king, not a wounded child. Inside your fortress, you're not cold. You're not cruel. You're clear. You're calm. You're in command. And here's the real beauty. Once you've built it, you realize you don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. You don't even need closure. Because you've become the kind of person who doesn't need the world to agree with your worth. You simply exist in it with presence so grounded it becomes intimidating to the unstable. I built a life no one can shake because I stopped letting them build it for me. So now when chaos knocks, let it knock. The doors won't open. Not unless you say so. They say, be yourself. They say, don't wear a mask. But here's what they never admit in this world: if you walk in unguarded, they will carve your truth into entertainment and bleed you for sport. You think they want your authenticity, but what they really want is access. Access to your mind, your weakness, your softness. They want you exposed, not so they can understand you, but so they can use you. And that's why the mask is not a lie, it's armor. You don't put it on to deceive, you put it on to survive. In a world that rewards performance but punishes vulnerability, the mask is your way of protecting the most sacred parts of yourself from people who have not earned the right to see them. You learn this the hard way. You open up to the wrong person. You reveal too much too soon. You speak from your soul and they laugh like it's a joke. And in that moment, something inside you fractures. You feel the sting of being naked in a battlefield surrounded by spectators who came not to support, but to consume. So you build a new version of yourself, stone by stone, not because you've lost who you are, but because you're finally learning how to carry it. You speak less. You reveal less. You smile without revealing your thoughts. You stop explaining your silence. And slowly people begin to sense the shift, not just in how you speak, but in the aura that surrounds you. The mask becomes your weapon, because behind it you are calculating, observing, choosing when to speak, choosing who to let in, choosing what battles deserve your fire and which ones deserve your silence. And here's the paradox they never teach you. The person who wears the mask often sees the truth more clearly than those who don't. Because when you no longer chase being understood, you begin to understand everything. You start to notice who asks deep questions and who only waits for their turn to speak, who respects your silence and who panics at your stillness, who honors your boundaries and who tests them just to feel in control. And you begin to understand something chilling. The more open you are, the more predictable you become. And the more predictable you are, the easier you are to manipulate. That's why the mask isn't deception, it's discipline. It doesn't mean you've lost yourself. It means you've learned to protect yourself from people who only love you when you're convenient, from people who turn your softness into leverage, from people who think access is a right, not a privilege. And when they say, "You've changed," don't flinch, because they don't miss the real you. They miss the version of you that had no boundaries, the version of you that danced for crumbs, the version that cried in front of people who enjoyed the performance. I wear the mask not to hide who I am, but to remind you that who I am is not yours to own. Let them wonder. Let them project. Let them gossip. While they talk, you build. While they doubt, you watch. While they attack, you armor up. And one day, when they realize they never really knew you, they'll understand the truth. The mask wasn't your prison. It was your freedom. Most people don't realize it, because it doesn't look like chaos. It doesn't sound like screaming. There's no blood on the floor, no flags waving in defiance, no battlefield to point at. But make no mistake, the war is real, and it's being fought in silence. Not the kind of silence that signals peace, but the kind that feels like standing still in a room full of unspoken betrayals, calculated glances, and tension sharp enough to cut your spirit open. The kind of silence where every word unsaid is a bullet dodged or a trap laid. This is the war of restraint. The war of watching people try to provoke you, distort you, bait you into losing your edge, and choosing not to take the bait. Because you know something they don't. Power doesn't announce itself. It studies. Then it strikes. This is the war you fight when you refuse to explain yourself. When you sit across from someone who twisted the narrative and instead of defending your name, you just lock eyes and say nothing. Because defending yourself would mean they still have control. And you've learned the person who stays still in the storm wins. It's a different kind of battle now. It's not about proving who's right. It's about becoming so unshakable, so unreadable, so quietly powerful that the noise around you loses its appetite. You start to notice the shift. People who once talked over you now speak with hesitation. Those who used to laugh at your softness now study your silence like a threat, because they can feel it. Something in you has changed. You no longer need their validation. You've built something quieter and far more dangerous, an inner rhythm no one else controls. This is the war you fight every day, not letting your emotions be dictated by other people's dysfunction, not breaking character when someone tries to drag you into a petty conflict, not lowering your frequency just to match the volume of chaos. You walk into rooms and you don't perform, you don't charm, you don't overshare. And in that vacuum of stillness, people project. They wonder, they fear, they assume. And that's when you realize the most terrifying weapon is not noise, it's presence. You become the man who no longer argues, the woman who no longer apologizes for having standards, the friend who no longer tolerates half love or half loyalty. You become a mystery, and in a world addicted to exposure, mystery becomes power. And it hurts at first, to be misunderstood, to walk away from battles you could win just to protect your peace, to stay silent while others rewrite the story. But here's the truth. No one tells you. Every time you stay calm in the fire, you become the fire. Not the flame that burns out, but the quiet heat that reshapes the room without saying a word. Let them talk. Let them provoke. Let them spin. I'll remain the calm that exposes their chaos. This is not weakness. This is war. And the battlefield is your emotional state. So train your stillness. Guard your energy. Choose your silences like weapons. Because in this world, the loudest ones may start the fights, but the quietest ones finish them. When people talk about discipline, they think of routine. Wake up early, go to the gym, say no to chocolate. But there's a far more brutal kind of discipline, one that isn't praised because it's invisible. The kind that doesn't show up in abs or to-do lists, but in your eyes when you've been pushed to your limit and still don't break. The kind that separates those who pretend to be strong from those who have earned it in silence. These are the 5 strategic disciplines. Not rules, not tips. Disciplines. And you don't try them. You live them. First, the discipline of emotional neutrality. When someone disrespects you, betrays you, lies to your face, or plays games with your loyalty, your instinct is to react, defend, explode, prove. But power doesn't flinch. Power watches. Power lets people expose themselves, not because you're weak, but because you're above the need to participate in their chaos. This discipline means not giving your energy to anything that drains it, not allowing temporary emotion to sabotage long-term control. You become the person who doesn't just feel things, you manage them, like a general commands troops. Second, the discipline of strategic silence. Most people talk to be liked. They fill the room with explanations, apologies, nervous laughter, hoping someone will understand them, but the more you speak, the more you leak power. Discipline means holding the line when silence is louder than any words you could say. It means letting people wonder, letting them feel the tension, letting your absence say what your presence no longer will. Because the silent man makes people project, and the silent woman makes people confess. Third, the discipline of presence without performance. In a world addicted to validation, you must become comfortable with not being seen, not being praised, not being clapped for. You walk into a room and don't perform. You don't need to be the funniest, the smartest, the most agreeable. You are just there, calm, composed, unbothered. This makes people uncomfortable not because you're rude, but because you're not playing the same social game, and that disarms them more than charm ever could. Fourth, the discipline of delayed reaction. When life hits you with betrayal, injustice, humiliation, you must train yourself not to strike back immediately. Why? Because retaliation without calculation is just another form of emotional slavery. Let the pain pass. Let the anger sit. Watch. Wait. Then respond, not to get revenge, but to reclaim position. Not with emotion, but with strategy. The strongest warriors are not the ones who act first. They're the ones who wait until the battlefield tilts in their favor. Finally, the discipline of inner sovereignty. This is the hardest And the most important, it means no matter who leaves, who changes, who betrays you, who forgets your worth, you remain intact. Your self-respect is not a mirror. It doesn't break when someone walks away. This is the discipline of needing no one. Not because you don't love, but because you refuse to collapse when love isn't returned. It is the moment you realize if everything crumbles around me, I'll still rise with what's inside me. These 5 disciplines aren't glamorous. They won't get you applause, but they will give you something far more rare: control over your reality. When you master these, people will start to sense it. You'll be quieter, sharper, more composed. They'll start talking softer around you, watching their tone, checking your face for cues, not because you demanded it, but because your discipline makes them feel your weight. That's the paradox of real power. The more internal it becomes, the more external the world bends to it. You don't dominate by force. You dominate by being untouchable. And untouchable isn't who you are, it's who you've trained yourself to become. We live in a culture addicted to volume. Everywhere you go, people are louder, flashier, more desperate to be noticed. They confuse presence with performance, attention with influence. But here's the truth. No one tells you the ones who truly bend the room don't do it by raising their voice. They do it by lowering their energy, by saying less, by doing less, until the atmosphere around them becomes heavier without a word. That is presence. Not the kind you fake, not the kind you rehearse, but the kind you build one quiet act of discipline at a time. You want to know why you don't command respect? Because you chase it. You try too hard. You make yourself available, explain yourself, constantly respond to every slight, and show up where you're not respected just to prove your worth. You're noise, and noise is forgettable. The people who dominate a room without speaking have learned to subtract. They subtract emotion, subtract opinion, subtract desperation, and what's left is something undeniable. A stillness that's more violent than yelling. A gaze that makes people correct their tone before you even say a word. Think about the last time someone walked into a room and didn't say much, but you couldn't stop watching them. It wasn't their looks. It wasn't charm. It was restraint. The ability to hold space without rushing to fill it. The refusal to perform. That's the kind of presence you have to build if you want to be taken seriously in this world. You can't beg for power. You have to radiate it. And to radiate it, you have to cut the noise. Start with your body. Stop moving so much. Fidgeting, pacing, nervous gestures, they scream insecurity. Let your stillness speak for you. Then cut the verbal clutter. No nervous laughs, no filler words, no over-explaining. Speak like every word costs you something. People don't respect chatter. They respect weight. Speak less, and when you do speak, let it land like a hammer wrapped in velvet. Let people feel your words, not just hear them. Don't correct every misunderstanding. Don't rush to defend your name every time someone twists it. Power doesn't explain. Power lets the silence burn. And here's the real secret: most of the time you won't need to do anything. When your presence is disciplined, your absence becomes terrifying. People will ask themselves, why is he so quiet? What is she thinking? That tension is leverage. That mystery is dominance. Because the mind hates an unfinished story, and when you stop explaining yourself, you become one. You become a question mark, and people don't control what they can't read. But presence isn't just about how you're seen. It's about what you see. When you're truly present, you watch people differently. You listen to what they don't say. You feel the micro shifts in tone, posture, energy. You become more precise, more emotionally intelligent, more dangerous. Not because you're pretending to be powerful, but because you're too aware to be manipulated. And once you reach that level of presence, you start to disappear from the world that rewards noise. You stop needing to be understood. You stop needing to win every argument. And ironically, that's when people start chasing your approval. That's when they feel your silence like a punishment, your attention like a reward. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to raise your aura. And the moment you realize that stillness is sharper than noise, you stop shouting and start watching. You stop trying to be impressive and start being inevitable. The world won't stop testing you. Not when you heal. Not when you evolve. Not even when you win. In fact, the more you grow, the more precise the pressure becomes. You don't graduate from life's fire, you simply become harder to burn. That's why discipline isn't something you do for a few weeks until you feel better. It's not a phase. It's not a trend. It's a lifestyle built for war. Because make no mistake, this world rewards the calmest mind in the chaos. And to hold that calm, you need a discipline that doesn't sleep. Every day you wake up and you train not just your body, but your instincts, your boundaries, your thoughts, your emotions. You train how you respond when the old triggers return, when the wrong person texts, when the opportunity to slip back into the old version of you shows up wearing nostalgia and false comfort. The real ones know healing isn't about moving on. It's about never going back. You don't become powerful by erasing your past. You become powerful by refusing to repeat it, and that refusal takes practice every single day. The weak think discipline is cold, but they don't understand it's the highest form of love. Love for your peace, love for your potential, love for the version of you that no longer tolerates disrespect, chaos, or emotional manipulation. Discipline is how you protect that version. It's how you say no without guilt, how you walk away without explanation, how you make silence louder than revenge. People will call you distant, harsh, arrogant. Let them. Let them misunderstand you. Because once you start protecting your peace like your life depends on it, it does. You stop needing to be liked. You stop needing to explain. You stop folding just to keep fragile people comfortable. Instead, you hold the line, even when it's lonely, especially when it's lonely. That's when the transformation cements. Not in the glow-up, not in the applause, but in those small, invisible choices. Waking up early, even when no one's watching. Saying no to chaos, even when your body craves it. Keeping your word even when no one will call you out. That's the real discipline. It's quiet, it's thankless, it's invisible, but it builds you, it sharpens you, and eventually it separates you, because while others chase comfort, you'll have clarity. While they beg for closure, you'll be too busy building legacy. While they fold to their emotions, you'll move with principle. And that's the moment you become unshakable. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And here's the truth, most people run from that discipline, this lifestyle of inner command. It never ends. There's no finish line. You'll be refining yourself until your last breath. But instead of fearing that, embrace it. Because the process is the reward. The journey is the proof. You'll know you've made it not when things feel perfect, but when you stop craving perfection and start craving growth. That's power. That's freedom. That's the life of a silent warrior. No more begging. No more proving. Just presence, precision, peace. You've buried the old you. Now protect what you've become every damn day. Life isn't just about healing, it's about choosing who you refuse to become again. That's the core of what you've just heard. Pain is inevitable, but staying weak is a decision. Most people will keep repeating the same emotional loops, calling it fate. But those who rise truly rise, make one quiet but irreversible choice to never be ruled by the same chaos twice. They learn to see pain as a teacher, not a curse. They stop waiting to be saved and start building the version of themselves that doesn't need saving. That's not cold. That's clarity. The deeper truth. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. Every time you walk away from toxicity, protect your peace, hold your boundaries without apology, you're declaring, I know who I am now. I won't betray that again. And that mindset, it ripples into every area of life. Relationships, career, mental health. You become harder to manipulate, harder to break, and impossible to replace. So if anything in this video struck a nerve, don't ignore it. That discomfort, it's your higher self trying to break through. Let it. Reflect on who you were, who hurt you, who you allowed yourself to be, and then choose differently. Subscribe if you want more content like this. Real talk, raw truth, no sugarcoating. Hit, like if this spoke to you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because we're not building followers here. We're building a movement of people who don't flinch, don't beg, and don't break. Stay sharp, stay cold, stay free.